Hi everybody, welcome back to the channel here at Paradise on Pennies. I'm Heather, and today I'm going to be talking about showering when you live on the road or you're a nomad, like we are. I've been living on the road for about 5 years now, and so I'm going to give you my perspective as well as go into some of the other ways of getting clean on the road that I've heard about, read about, or that I know other people do as well. And then I'll kind of talk about each of them so you can consider. If you are getting ready to hit the road in any type of rig, you could be going in an SUV like we started out, or a truck camper, or even a big, say, school bus, RVs, vans. There's all kinds of different rigs. And so you'll have a lot of options for showers. They could be onboard or off-board locations that you could find showers at. So let's jump right into it. So I'll start with the absolute cheapest options, which will pretty much be free. And these are the ones that we pretty much take advantage of in our situation. I've been on the road for many years, and I haven't coughed up too much money for the purpose of showering or getting clean. Now, that does mean that sometimes I go for a really long time without a shower, but I'm comfortable with that. I might get a little dirt on me, but I'm comfortable with that, and it seems to be doing just fine because I've also never been sick on the road, so I'm not too worried about it. Some people are. But I just want everyone to know and be aware that you don't necessarily have to have a shower on board. There are other ways to get it done. One of the absolute easiest ways to clean up when you're on the road is to simply just jump in some water. Go swimming in a stream or a lake or river. When you're at camp, this is what we did when we first started off living. You can go back through our story here. We have older videos when we first started out. We started out in an SUV, in a Ford Escape. And yes, we lived in that. And we didn't have a lot of luxuries at all. And we definitely didn't have a shower on board. Whatever, we'd jump in a river, and that was pretty much the shower. The only downside to bathing or swimming in rivers to rinse off is especially apparent when you get up north, because the waters can be excruciatingly cold, in which some cases I was just like, forget it. I don't need to rinse off. I'm good. In that case, that's one of the downsides of strictly bathing in rivers. And the other downside would be, you have to find a river. That gets a little tricky in the Southwest U.S. because while there are rivers, they're sometimes harder to find, sometimes harder to get access to, sometimes harder to find with no one around because, when you need to bathe, you might need to strip down and jump in the river. So if you have a lot of people around, that doesn't really work out too great either. But it's possible. The water down south also tends to be a little dirtier, warmer, more stagnant. So it's a little tricky, but we made it work for several years. After a while, it did look very appealing to have some option for warmer waters. So there are a couple options here. If you want warm water, which I understand if you do, I love warm water showers. There's the obvious, easy answer. You could just heat the water up. So again, if you're by a river or you have a water source, scoop it up and put it on a fire. If you have a big pot or something, you could put it on a fire. You could warm it up, and then you could, scrub yourself that way. From the pot, you could stand in it, depending on what kind of bucket you have, and then just scrub yourself off. Or I guess you could dump it on your head if you really want to as well. I know it's a little harder for the ladies with hair. It tends to just use more water and everything. It's just a little more pain to rinse it out and all that. But that is an option, and we have done that as well. And then to take it a step further from there, you can start looking into options on other ways to have hot water around, and maybe something where you could actually have a little more of a shower appeal if you want the water running down you. There are still some really, really cheap alternatives. They'll just be an upfront cost, and then after that it's free. So one of the maybe obvious ones is the shower in a bag. If you haven't heard of it, fairly simple concept. It's just literally a bag, and it works by sitting the bag in the sun. It's black on one side, and then you fill it with water, and the water heats up in the sun. And then after a while, you'll have hot water, depending on the heat of the day. And then you have to hang it up in a tree or somewhere where you can hang it up. And again, this is something that is really nice if you're just hanging around camp. We did do a review on our shower in a bag that we got. We got a cheap one. I know there's a couple of other options out there, but we just opted for a cheap one, which has done the trick. It had some issues, but it was still usable. It's just a little cumbersome, especially for us shorties, to be hanging it up in a tree tall enough to get the water flow down. But I'll put the link, and you guys can check out the review and be thinking about whether or not a cheap shower bag will do the trick for you as well. It's also small. It can pack small, so it's not going to take up a lot of space. I know when you're living on the road, space is a really big deal, especially for us small-scale nomads doing this on a budget and, say, an SUV or a van or whatnot. Space is always important. So that's a nice option. And you can use it pretty much anywhere there's sun. So that is our big luxury, and that's what we always talk about here on the channel, is how we pretty much went down to almost nothing, and then we've kind of built up from there. So now a lot of people would probably look at our lifestyle and still think we're super simple and we don't have a lot of stuff, which we don't. But we tend to look at it still as that we're living in total luxury because now we have shower in a bag. So it's a good perspective on life. A little advancement on the shower in a bag concept, but still kind of a warming water technique. This is something we have not tried, but I am aware that a lot of people do it. They put black tubes somewhere on their rig setup, and then they can allow the water to be stored and heated that way as well. And then you can have some sort of apparatus to have a shower straight from there. Also, it could be a fairly cheap alternative as well, depending on your materials that you put into it. So maybe a good option. We just didn't opt for it because, well, we have the shower in a bag thing, and that seems to be working. And we just wanted to keep it cheap and simple. And we also weren't sure if we wanted the weight on one side of the vehicle because we didn't really have a way to counter that. It seemed a little troublesome to be putting all, and water's heavy. So to have that weight on one side. And then also just kind of a pain to fill it up. So yeah, we just opted not for that. In the means to just stay simple. So, but that is another option out there that might work for you. Okay, so those are the things you can take with you, have with you all the time at camp. And pretty much like I said, if you stay at camps that are off the beaten path, you can shower whenever you feel like it. Some people or some products out there that are available are these little like tent shower huts or whatever. I guess if you're around people, if you're camping around a lot of people, then maybe that's why that's an available product. But to be perfectly honest, we like our privacy at camp. So it's not something that we really need. So I would just caution you to just consider whether or not you need some of that kind of marketed gear when you're preparing to hit the road. Just try some of the cheaper things out first and the easier alternatives. And then if you need it, you can always go buy something. But yeah, just don't go buy all this stuff and then realize later that it takes up space and you don't really need it. And yeah, if you're going to be at private camps, boondocking in the middle of nowhere, you shouldn't really need that. Enjoy your camp and take a shower outside and be in nature. Be one with nature like we do. If you are going to be in a situation where, say, you'll be more at campgrounds, well, then a lot of times you'll probably have a shower opportunity. And so that's where we'll kind of climb away from having your cheap shower available with you at all times to now you're just going to, say, maybe take advantage of showers as you travel. Campground is an obvious location that you could get showers at. But you might not realize that there's actually a lot of parks. We've found county parks that have shower availability. And these are just like quarter pay showers. So they tend to not be super expensive. I don't know it's something you would want to be doing every day because that's going to add up. But if you're just going to look for a shower every once in a while, This might be something that you want to consider and know may be available while you're on the road. We have done, over like the 5 years we've been on the road, I think we did one of those. Also, a lot of people know about gas stations. So if you're hitting the road, there are a lot of options for pay showers at gas stations. I think like Flying J and those type of places probably almost always have shower availability, but I think other gas stations, even in small towns, a lot of them end up having shower options too, especially in maybe more touristy or outdoor themed areas. You'll probably find showers there as well. So there you go. If you don't want to have one on board at all, or if you want to have one on board and have that as a backup for a real stand-up shower, if you need the flowing water, and if it's really cold outside, you still have options. You can pay a couple bucks and just take a shower. Okay, so beyond that, things that are still options that I'm aware of that we have never tried, but are out there to consider. And these ones will start to get a little costlier. So you will probably hear people mention gym memberships for the opportunity to take a shower. This is something we have never considered because we don't have any other advantage to a gym membership, so the cost doesn't really work out for us. Maybe for some people who need to use other facilities at a gym, that might be important. I think some people park there and they might want to work out there and then they get a shower. Or some people tend to hang out around cities more often. If that's the case, it may be worth it, but in our situation, or if you're going to nomad like us, and again, that means being in the middle of nowhere, doing it on a really cheap budget, not really wanting to be in cities much, and hence you don't really need a place to park because you park out in nature, then I don't think it would be worth it for those types of nomads. Again, our working out ends up coming from hiking, so we wouldn't really take advantage of the gym facility. It would just be for showers, and then we'd have to weigh out the price as to whether or not whatever it ends up being, a couple $100 a year is really worth it for showers, versus if we just, like I said, if you just did the paid showers every once in a while, that might suffice. But along those lines, you could go to a hotel for showering options. Now, obviously, this option is going to get a little pricey. It's definitely not something you want to do all the time, every night, if you need a shower every day. Again, we don't need a shower every day, and I would advise new nomads to reconsider their needs for luxuries and not need a shower every day, because it might be a little inconvenient and costly. But yeah, if again, it depends on your setup and everything. We were in an SUV for a while, and when we were in the SUV, we pretty much went for really long periods of time just not having the luxuries, not having a shower. We'd jump in rivers sometimes, like I mentioned. But then we'd get in these weeks and weeks of not having a shower and it being cold, and it just would get to the point where it was like, okay, I really want a shower. I really want a place to like stretch out. Again, we were sleeping in the back of an SUV. So every once in a while, we did get a hotel. And since we did it like, I don't know, maybe once a year, maybe twice, it wasn't very often. It ended up not costing us that much, and it was just kind of a nice reprieve from sleeping in an SUV every night of the year. So yeah, for you SUV life people out there, that might be good enough for you. Get a shower in the bag for a couple bucks, I think like $10, if you want a shower like that. Plan to just jump in a river. It's exhilarating anyway. And then maybe once a year, treat yourself to a hotel night and relax. So it actually might work out nice just to do that instead. Now, the obvious last way to have a shower is literally to have a full-scale shower on board, and there are plenty of rigs that offer that, but this is definitely going to get you into a more costly ground because you'll be buying a rig that has more space. Now, you could build something into a van or a whatever kind of RV, small RV that you have. It might be a pain to carry around the water. And when again, it depends on your lifestyle you're going to have. Again, I would consider, if you're going to be more like us, just remember that water is going to be precious, and you're not really always going to want to use your water for a full-on shower. Otherwise, you have to take a lot of water with you, which means a lot more weight. And if you're doing off-roading, or you're trying to get out in the middle of nowhere and you might be on rough roads, weight becomes an even bigger issue, and you don't want your rig to be really heavy. We are now in a truck camper. After our SUV got a little old on us, we had to think about what kind of rig would be next, and we chose truck camper, a light, small pop-up truck camper, as one of our favorite options, and that's what we've been in. And this is home, and we'll be home for a long time. It does not have luxuries on board. We don't have toilet, we don't have a shower and all that. We pretty much still do what we did in the SUV. But again, yeah, we're not going to tote around tons of water. We take water that we need for us. We have dogs as well. That water goes, that's precious, so that goes for drinking water for the dogs, and even the luxury of having a hot drink when it's cold out in the mornings and stuff like that, and cooking for our food, so, and drinking, of course. So that's something to consider. Water is heavy. So just think about that when you're doing your build in your van, or your whatever rig you have, or you're deciding which rig to have, which if you are new and you're trying to pick a rig, check out our videos. We did extensive, excruciating research on the best type of rig, and we shared it all into like a multi-video series where you could just watch that and get ideas, and it might help you decide which rig would be best for you as well. So we provided all that information from our research in those videos. I'll stick that link in here as well so it's easy to find. Anyway, yeah, so lastly, just move up the scale. You can have a small rig, a big rig. You could have a full-on motorhome, big RV with full shower on board. That's an option, but that's going to cost you a lot more. That's not really the target of our channel, although those people might live on the road. It's more expensive than what we can or want to do on our budget here. We are budget nomads for sure. So it's interesting when you get into the math as well. If you say you were going to stay in a hotel for like $60 a night, give or take, it could be double that. Maybe one night a week, that would be somewhere around $3,000 total for the year. So you could stay in a hotel one night every week, or that's on average, so that could be like a week on, week off, week on, week off thing, however you've configured it. Point is on average once a week is $3,000 for the year. So in reality, in some cases it might actually be better just to do that. You get the luxury of not having to worry about anything. You go to the hotel, you have everything taken care of. And there's other advantages too. So you don't have to pay to park there. You just pay for the hotel night. So it, in some ways, the cost might actually work out to just do that instead. But I'll talk more extensively about that whole issue in another video later. So I'll put the link for that as well, for my take on why do we live so cheap as nomads on the road, and why didn't we consider having something like a large RV or motorhome. So that's pretty much it, guys. I can't think of too many other ways that you could shower on the road. I think those are the main ways that you could get yourself clean. And I hope that was helpful for anybody that is considering building out a van or SUV or bus or whatever you're working on and you're planning on hitting the road. I hope this is helpful. And if it was helpful, go ahead and just give the video a like, help us out on the channel here, and let others know that this is a useful video. And if you want to see more about our adventures, I talk all about being on the road and what we do, how we save money, what we do for cheap and free hobbies, and then also a lot of tales from the road of all our crazy adventures. So if you want to check all that out, just subscribe to the channel and you'll see our latest videos when they come out. Thanks so much for being here, guys. I'll see you next time. Bye.